Hello, this week we're looking at God's people in cities, number 3 in the series on the book of Revelation. I happen to be standing in Heraklion in Crete, and this was a very ancient city. Yesterday we were in Knossos, and you've just seen some of the pictures from that very ancient palace there, going back, well, truly millennia. And as we focus now on thinking about God's people in these cities, we saw last week the church in Ephesus, and now we're looking at the other churches. This really is symbolic of where we are, these historic cities leading us through prophetically. But I want to concentrate on the fact that we now do live in cities, almost all of us around the world. And as we think of living in these cities, we really have to think about, well, what do we see around us? We see just everything which is human. We see our buildings, we see our cars, we see all the evidence of humanity. We don't see God's creation, and this tends to make us inwardly focused, thinking about ourselves. But in our notes, we're told there under Friday about these different churches, and that these churches show a decline through the ages. And another example is the planes that are going overhead, which just pause as they go by. So these 7 churches, which show a decline as time goes on, going from the church in Ephesus all the way down, and I think the word is down, to the church of Laodicea. We have lost our first love, we have compromised, we think we're wonderful when we're not, we think we're rich and increased of goods and have need of nothing, but we don't recognize that we're poor and we're blind and we're naked. And as we think of those kinds of things, as Revelation there in chapters 2 and 3 explain these churches, it's important for us to see where we are. I think we see evidences of all these churches historically and in our time today. As we look around, sometimes we are in one era and sometimes in another, as it were. But primarily we are the church of Laodicea, and that's really nothing to be proud about. The fact that we have compromised, the fact that we are no longer really following our first love, with the fact that we are not really committed as we should be as an end-time church looking forward to Jesus' coming. Revelation does show us where we are in the sweep of history, and it shows who we are in terms of our very nature, our spiritual experience. And the call is to come back to God, to buy of Him, as it were, that gold, so we may be truly rich, spiritually rich towards God. Jesus talked about that. He says, we look at our treasure and that is where our heart is. So that's what we need to be thinking about. The fact that we are truly committed to God in our hearts, thinking of not simply this world in which we live and all this human surrounding that we have, but looking forward to a city whose builder and maker is God, as we see at the end of the book of Revelation. So I encourage you to think about this. It's a great deal to study, a great deal of history, but most of all, who are we? Where are we going? Let us be committed to our loving Lord. May God bless you as you do just that.